So today we are going to start our lecture 4. In previous lectures, we understand some basics of Python, and this is the lecture 4, and we are going to deep dive into find file handling input output operations in Python. So how we can perform these operations in Python. Sometimes when we are doing our work, we want to store our data in some files, and we want to write it. We want to sometimes read the data, or sometimes we want to add more data into that file. And we can do that in Python using Python file input output operations. Before jumping towards that, we have to understand what kind of files we have and how we write in data in specific kind of files. So we have two major categories. First one is text files, and the other one is binary files. So text files contains .txt file, .doc, and .log, etc. Majorly, we will be working with .txt file, but if you want to store your data in doc file, you can also use that. Other type of file is binary files. Binary files have .mp4. mp4 is used for videos, and .mpo is also another kind of extension for videos. .png, .jpeg. Both of these are for pictures. So you can also write data in the form of pictures, and that will be the binary format. Here we can see so the input output operations are divided into 3 steps. First, you will open it, and then you will perform whatever operation you want. If you want to perform read operation, then you will read that. If you want to perform write operation, then you will use write, which you can see here, and other operations also. After you have performed the operation, you have to close the file. So we have to open a file before reading or writing. So first step of this input output operation is to open the file. But how we can open it? We can use open function of Python, and in first parameter it asks us to use file name, and in the second parameter we have to provide the mode. If we want to read it, we will use R. If we want to write it, we will use W. And there are also other modes which we will discuss in the next slide. Here we can see we are using .txt and doc file. Both of these are text files, so we don't need to use anything else. If let's say we are using binary files .mp4, then we have to use P with R, and with the W we also have to use, because it's binary, so we include P in that. After we open our file, we read it using this f.read function. What read function does is read the complete content of our file, and it will store into our data. After we have complete our operation, we will close it. We have to close the file. Okay. Now let's jump into operation. So these are one of the most common operations which you perform. By default, if you didn't provide any second argument in your code, then it will by default read it. So R is for reading, W is for writing, and in write, when you use W in your mode, the previous data gets removed, it gets overwritten. So you will only see the current data which you have written. And X is also used for writing, but here is the difference. If the file already exists and you are trying to write something in that file using X operation, then it will give us the error. You have to create a new file if you want to perform operation X. In short, operation X is just used to start from the beginning and create a new file and write whatever you want. A is for appending, and when we have a file and when we want to append at the end of the file, we will use A. Remember one thing, the append is also append at the end of the file, not the start. P is for binary mode, which we discussed in previous slide, that if you want to read MP4 file, MP3 file, or JPEG file, we have to use binary mode for that. T is for text mode, it by default, and plus is for like we have file and which is stored in our disk, and we have to use it for reading and writing. Then we use plus sign. In 95% of the time, we will be using with R, W, A, and sometimes X. Other operators are not used frequently much. So here what we are doing, we are reading a file. What does read function do is it reads the entire file of our whatever written in that file. And there's a difference between read and read line. Read reads the complete file, but read line by line. If we call read line first, it will read the first line and it will store into that data. And let's say we will run this in the code, and I will explain that in there. So writing to a file. When you want to do some operation, such as we are performing writing operation here, so we will use W, and in which file we want to write. If you want to create some new file, we have to give the name of that file, and then we use the write function to write this line in this demo.txt. Remember one thing, the write operation overrides the whole content. Okay. And sometimes we don't want to remove our previous content. We just want to add something new in our file, and that's where we will use append. Append is just used to add the new line at the below of our content. So this will add at the end of our file. With syntax. Okay, so in above code, we see that we have to close it. In every time you open the file, we have to close it, otherwise we will get an error if we are performing some other operation. So for that, we can use with. What with does is that we don't need to manually close the file. When we use with open as, it automatically close our files once the operation has been completed. So it's a good way to do our file handling. After that, we can also remove our file using the OS module, and this is the OS remove function, which will remove our complete file. So that was some basic things. Let me jump towards start. We will be working on the text file first. So I'm going to create a new file here, and I'm going to say practice.file. Okay. So I don't have any code now. So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to use open function here, and then I'm going to create file. Because we don't have any file, so we cannot perform read operation here. So we will be starting with write. So I have to give this file. So I'm input.txt, then I'm going to use W, or I want this to write something. So I'm going to put it out. Okay. I'm writing that this is our first file, and I'm just going to write in the line. This is just the beginning. Remember, we have to write both of these lines in a separately. So I'm going to use backward slash. Okay. So in this page, we'll write. Okay. Once we write our content, I'm going to run it so that you can see it. Okay, so it's running now. Let me see. I don't want to debug it with this, and then so you can see we have write our two lines in our input.txt. Okay, that was easy, but it's just the start. Now, what we have to do? Let's say we want to read that data from our file. So for that, first we have to close it because it's in the written mode. We have to read it. So for that, I'm going to copy this line and I'm going to just convert it into read mode. After that, what I'm going to do, F1, F1 dot read. Run Python file. It was on debug mode and that's why it was taking a lot of time. Now, okay, so I didn't print it. Okay, so whatever function you call it should print it. Okay, so you can see this is our two lines which we printed from here. So you can also see we are rerunning our file again and again, and we are using W mode, and that's why it is removing previous content and just appending the adding these new content there. Let's say we use append here. What do you think will append mode do here? We have already two lines. So let's say I'm going to change the content of this so that you can see it easily. This is our append mode. This is adding four line. Okay, so I'm going to run it. Okay, we will see this. We will see it. Okay. So let's just first jump to file. Our two recent lines have been appended into this file because we use append mode. So it doesn't remove previous content, it just adds these lines into .txt. Also, when we try to print it, we can see that it prints the complete full line here. Okay. So now I'm going to comment this code so that it doesn't create any issues for us. After that, we have used f1.read function for reading. We also have another function f1.read line. Okay, so I'm going to comment this and I'm going to run it again. So it just read the first line of our file. Okay. I also have, let's say I want to print second line, then I have to use this function second time and it will print both first and second line too. Okay. The first line, you can see here we have a space. Okay. Why star? It's because we have a new line character at the .txt file. So when it reads it, it prints, it adds the new line in our content. Okay. We have another function which is print f1 dot read lines. What does this function do is it prints our complete content, but in the form of list. Here you can see that we have a list of lines and we have backward slash n with each line because I already shared that after E it has new line character. So when we are trying to read it from our file, it will read that character also. So that was read operation and append operation and write operation. We have to discuss about with also. So when I have to comment this out. We didn't close F1 here, but we should. So sometimes we forget if we open some file and just we forgot to close it. So the another way to do that automatically is using if. So I'm going to use if with open and I'm going to write input.txt file and then I'm going to use read here. And then I have to use some pointer so that I can use that pointer to read from my file. I'm going to use R here. After that, what I am going to do is I'm going to R dot read. I'm going to just print it. I'm not going to store it in a variable because it's not worth. Okay, so we can see here, this is our data and it's reading from input.txt. I hope you get it. It was an easy. Now let us work with X mode. X operation. I'm going to name it something else. It's like new files.txt, and new file does not exist. So what X operator will do is it will create a new file, and then we have to write some content in that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add dot write, and this is the X operation. Okay, so I'm going to run it. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, so you can see this is the X operation here. Let us retry and okay, run this code and again. What we learned in PPT is that PowerPoint presentation is X is create new file. And if that file already exists, which we have, it will give us an error. Let me run it. So you can see here, file exists error, file exists. So if file already exists in X and you are trying to create new file using X mode, it will give us an error. Let's say I'm going to change this name. Now it will work perfectly because X operation create new file and it create new file. Okay, so this was for opening, reading, closing, and we have learned most common operator. We have read the file, and we also learn how we can read one line at a time and also complete file also in a form of list. Here we are writing and we done with that. Okay, so with open we also okay, so there one more part, deleting. So we have two files here, input.txt and new file.txt. Let's say I want to remove it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to import OS module, and then I'm going to OS, I'm going to remove it. OS will remove. It's just simpler and easy way to remove your unnecessary file. Let's see. Okay, so for how file has been removed, I'm just going to remove this last file also. Okay, so we are done with this, and that was some basic introduction of IO. And if you want to deep dive further into these topics, you can open documents of different documentation. But for the sake of practice, I'm going to share the task with you. Okay, so this is the first task. What you should do is that you should pause this video and complete this task, and then you should come back again and match my code with yours. I'm going to start. So this is task one. So I'm going to create a new file. That will be task1.py. And let us understand the question. Create a new file, practice.txt using Python at foreign data. So we have to just create a file and we have to use this data. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to create a new file here with open, because we don't want to use the road close function again. That's why I'm using it with okay. And what was the file name? It was practice.txt. And I have to write data into it. So I'm going to use write mode W as what we can say. We can use P here, whatever pointer you want. P dot write. Okay, so this will, I think I'm going to add each line in separate line for the sake of clarity and for better view, I believe. Yeah. It's I hope you didn't get those because of this. Sometimes we have a software engineer who has to do this kind of work also. Okay, so we have written our. Let's write. Okay, so what we have to do is that replace all occurrence of Java with Python in above file. First, I'm going to write this code in our file, and then that's why I'm first going to run it. So we have practice.txt with us. Okay, There's one problem. We didn't add line separator here, and that's why it gives all our content in one line. I'm going to rerun it. Now it's in the correct format. Now what we have to do is we have to find the occurrence of Java with Python in our file. And what we have to do, we have to replace all occurrence of Java with Python. So for that, we understand our requirement, and now we know what we want to do. And upper code we use for writing. I'm going to comment it because we already have our required content. Okay. So what we have to do, I'm just going to write it. Replace Java with Python. We just have to do the simple task, and it's easy. What we will do first, we will first read it from our file, and then we will use read mode here, and I can say read mode dot we have a function which we call read, and I'm going to store it updated data. Now we have our Java data in this code, in this variable, you can say. Now I'm going to update the data dot replace. What we have to replace? We have to replace Java with Python. Okay. And I'm going to store it into our result. Okay, to clear things up, I'm going to print it so that we can see our result. So here it is. Now instead of Java, we have Python. This doesn't end here. Now we have our required data. I need to save this into our file. I'm going to copy this line. And instead of using read operator, I'm going to use write and R mode W mode. And I'm just going to W mode write result in that. This way, our data will be updated. So let's run this again. Now I'm going to check this file. It's now Python instead of Java. It's now Python. So our task completed. We placed Java into Python. Okay, so we also have another task here. So what we have is search if the word learning exists in our file or not. This is the word which we have to search. I'm going to repeat the question. Search if the word learning exists in the file or not. It's simple. So this task has been completed. I'm going to comment this. What you have to do? Search if learning exists or not. So for that, I'm going to declare word learning in a variable so that I can compare it with the content. And to compare it, I need to first read from the file with open file name is objective.txt and then read as, let's say I'm going to say R here. After that, I'm going to data.read. I'm going to read by line so that I can compare it with my required learning variable. What read function does is it is first line, and in the next iteration it will read second line, and so on. After that, if I'm trying to find if data dot find is equal to word, if word exists, and that if word exists, then it will give us true here. So I'm just going to say it's not equals to -1. That means that we found that word, and we will print from here. Otherwise, we will print not found. Okay. So I'm going to run this code. So it gives us found because we have learning here. So let me change. Okay, I'm just going to change the one spelling here. I'm going to remove R here. Not found. So that means our code is running correctly. I'm just going to put this code into a function, check for so I need to give this now. It works. So instead of calling, I'm just going to call this function. Uh, it's running perfectly. Now let's jump towards our second task here. To find in which line of the file does the word learning occur first. Okay. So we have to find where learning word occur in our file. For that, I'm going to declare a function which is check for line. We're just going to copy this word here. This is the same expression here. Because we also have to declare as a variable line number, which is 1. And we will use flag here, while and we will run this flag until we didn't find the variable. So if word in where we have to search it, so we cannot run it. We first have to read it when read the file practice.txt comma read as r again, and here we can dot read line. We just want to read first line first. And we can store this into data. And we can then compare if word in data exists. That means we have found the word. And if we have found the word, then what we have to do? We have to print the line here. Okay. So I'm just going to print the line number here. And then I'm going to return it. Otherwise, if it doesn't find the first line, then I'm going to print it by 1. That I can print the next line, first or next line. And if while loop doesn't terminate, then I'm going to return it. I'm going to call this function here. Here, this out. Let us see here. Okay, so it doesn't print anything. I think I didn't use print function here, and that's the reason. My computer is very slow because I don't have enough space and laptop configuration driver. Just let's wait for 1 minute. Step for line number learning line number. Maybe I will try to debug it. Debugging is the best way to find the problem from the code. Here we have learning. Read file, read line. Hi everyone, so it doesn't exist. Line number increment by 1. And then we have it open. So I think the problem is that it is reading that line again and again, read your line. So maybe what we can do here. I think what we mistake and made here is that it will jump while towards while loop again and again, and we are opening file at each time, and then it reads the first line in every attempt. And I think that's the problem here. So for that, what we have to do is we have to take this backward and the file flag and then we will read each line separately here. Yeah, I think that will work. For that, I'm going to this let us see here our result. It's giving us two, and that's correct. Let us, check in here. Let us we want to find in here. So for that reason, I'm going to give this in and rerun it again. Okay, so it's two. I think because it already exists here. Let us use Python here. A unique word. We only counting first instance of each word. So it's three. That means our code is working. But it gives us none and yeah. So what we have to do, we will remove this print function, and in return, what we will do is this is the line number. Okay, and then I'm going to format line number. I'm going to remove this line. Okay, hopefully this will work now. Strange, it doesn't work. Okay, we are returning. So returning for whenever you are returning from function, you have to print it. This is the line number 3. Now this is correct answer. Okay. -1 if word not found. This code will work. From a file containing numbers separated by print the count of even numbers. So I think I'm not going to do this task because it will be easy for you if you are finding the answer of each question. This is your homework, and if you find any difficulty in the task, you can ask in the comment section of my channel, and I will definitely share solution there. Thank you for giving your time to this lecture. I hope you learned these main pillars of the Python program.